right, we have people coming into the room right now, so we're going to give it a few seconds for all of our attendees to get into the room for our broadcast. Good evening, everybody. Again, just a few seconds while everybody gets here in the room. I'm actually going to chat out to all of our attendees the information about our meeting tonight, as well as our information for our panelists. So as everyone's coming in, I'm getting this ready to push it out to y'all. Oh, that might have not been the right link. Hold on just one second, folks. You're all coming in. I'm getting everything ready. All right, it looks like everybody's here. So just in a second, it looks like I have the wrong link saved, but I'll get that out to you once we get going. My name is Michelle Bird. Good evening, everybody. I am the Public Affairs Director at Larimer County. I am going to be your Zoom host for this evening's panel. So that means I'm a little bit of an IT director, a moderator, a timekeeper, but one thing I'm definitely not, I am not a criminal justice expert, and that is actually left up to our panelists here tonight. They are our criminal justice experts, and they were actually the ones that invited you all here tonight to join them to talk a little bit about our court system. This is a series. Tonight is just one of 4 different sessions in our series, hosted by the CJAC. So CJAC stands for the Criminal Justice Advisory Committee. This committee is an advisory and policy level board consisting of county elected officials and other principal justice system decision makers. These include judges, prosecutors, public defenders, probation and parole officials, alternative sentencing and community corrections service providers, police, first responders, and human services, behavioral health, and juvenile service providers. The mission of the Larimer County Criminal Justice Advisory Committee is to participate in a structured policy planning process that addresses issues facing the county's criminal justice system. The committee sets priorities, develops and executes policy decisions, and strives to ensure an accountable and coordinated justice system in Larimer County. So you'll see we have the agenda on the screen shared with you all tonight. And so that's what we're gonna do. But before we get into kind of the meat of our evening, I wanna talk to you guys about participating via Zoom webinar. So if you've participated in Zoom meetings before, this might be a little different than what you're used to. You'll notice there's no chat box. Well, actually there is a chat box, but you'll notice that participants can't use the chat box. Only the panelists and me as the host can use the chat box. And there's really 2 reasons for that. They're both related to safety. Our main concern is that someone would be involved, a participant would come in tonight and shoot out via the chat box a link which you guys would click on that could either put a virus on your computer, it could be ransomware, it might take you to a website that you don't want to go to. And so we really want to prevent that from happening. The second thing you'll notice is you only see the screens of myself and our panelists. So you'll only see our faces tonight. Again, so that's so we could invite everybody to join, but we didn't have to be concerned with what others that we didn't know what they were showing on their screen. It's really a safety issue. But that doesn't mean you can't participate tonight. There's a few different ways you can participate. One, you should all notice there is a raise hand feature. So somewhere on the bottom of your screen, you'll see where it says raise hand. That indicates to me that you have something you want to say. So if you just click that, it puts you in a queue, and then I will be able to allow you to talk. I'll let you know, I'll call out your name. I'll say, Sally, it's your turn to talk. Go ahead, you'll have to unmute yourself. So you'll have to go ahead and unmute yourself. If you don't feel comfortable speaking, that's totally okay. We have a Q&A box. So you are more than welcome to type your questions in the Q&A box. That'll kind of function as our chat box tonight. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in there. If you have commentary, maybe you don't necessarily have a question, but you have something you want to add. We want you to feel like your voice is being heard, and we want you to know that we're hearing what you're saying. So if you type that into the Q&A box, if it's a comment, I'll just go ahead and make that live right away. For the questions, we're going to hold those back till the end after we get through our panelists, and we'll go through those one by one and we'll answer all those questions. As I said earlier, I'm going to use the chat box to hopefully send you guys the agenda. Unfortunately, I had the wrong link ready to go, so that was not what I intended to do, but I'll get that link out to you guys here as soon as I have a chance. If anyone has dialed in tonight, I know you could dialed in, so if you are on your phone, not using the Zoom app on your phone, but if you call the phone number on your phone and that's how you're participating tonight, you can still participate as well. You're just going to have to hit *9, and that'll let me know that you're wanting to talk. Once we get to the Q&A part, I will share all these instructions with you guys again. Don't feel like you have to remember them all now. As I said, we're going to have our panelists talk about the programs they're involved with in the court system tonight before we get to the Q&A section. Again, please, as questions come to your mind, don't feel like you have to wait till the end. Just type them in the Q&A box, but we will get to them again at the end. If it happens that we can't get to everyone's questions tonight, I apologize in advance, but we do have a way to save all those questions, and we have your registration information, so we'll make sure we'll get you answers to your questions. They might not be all answered tonight, but I promise you that they will all be answered. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Judge Howard. Judge is going to give us some opening remarks about our conversation this evening. Judge Howard, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Good evening, everybody.
Oh, Judge, it looks like you got muted somehow. Try again. There you go.
Did you hear anything from me?
I heard good evening.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name's Steve Howard. I am the Chief Judge for the 8th Judicial District, which is Larimer and Jackson counties. As you might imagine, I could perhaps say 99%, maybe a little less, of our business is Larimer County. And certainly my comments will focus pretty much entirely on Larimer County tonight. In the district, we have 9 district court judges, 5 county court judges, and 5 full-time magistrates and 1 25% magistrate. The district court is our general jurisdiction court. For criminal purposes, the district court handles the felonies, the county court handles misdemeanors and traffic cases, and well, traffic infractions as well, although those are technically civil. I am not, as chief judge, much as I would like to be the boss of all the other judges, that's not the case because as you're probably all aware, the judges are, they have to apply, they interview with the nominating commission, bipartisan, and then the nominating commission sends names to the governor, and the governor appoints the judges, and then they stand for retention periodically. So I do not have any control over the judges, although I do over the magistrates who are hired by me ultimately. The authority of the chief judge comes from a chief justice directive from the Colorado Supreme Court Chief Justice. One of the things that the Chief Justice Directive authorizes the chief judge to do is to issue administrative orders. It names the chief judge as the administrative head. And basically, I used to think before I knew better that before I became a judge that chief judge was selected because they are the person who is the best judge. Well, not true. They are selected because they're willing to perform a bunch of administrative duties instead of devoting themselves entirely to judicial duties. So I can issue administrative orders, and that will come up here a little later. I can also assign cases and court types, and that's significant for tonight's purposes, in that not me, but the predecessor, my predecessor chief judges have created the specialty courts, or have made the decision to have the specialty courts that we will be talking about. Others will be talking about in more detail. What I want to at least initially focus on is the Criminal Justice Advisory Committee, which Michelle gave some explanation about, but I want to tell you a little more about the what we refer to as CJAC. The CJAC does not have independent authority. It is designed to make recommendations, advise. That's why advisory is in the title, for programs and for things to be done with the in the criminal justice field. I want to tell you who is on this advisory committee, because I think this is one of the great aspects of the criminal justice system in this area. Not only is the chief judge on it, but the Larimer County Sheriff, the Fort Collins Police Chief, the Loveland Police Chief, the District Attorney, the Public Defender, Chief Probation Officer. There's a representative from the Department of Corrections, specifically as to parole matters. The county manager is on it, the Human and Economic Health Director, the Community Corrections Director, the Jail Administrator, the CEO of Summit Stone Health Partners, and the Criminal Justice Services Director. The way the CJAC operates is very collaborative. It seeks to address criminal justice issues. Any member can bring an idea to the table for consideration. And of course, each of those members has very different constituents and contacts, which means there are many sources for new and sometimes very innovative ideas. One very good example is the Pretrial Services program. We had a Pretrial Services program. They're still trying to create it statewide. I think many jurisdictions now have one. But historically, bonds, people have been asked to put up money to assure that they will return to court and not commit any new crimes while they have a pending criminal matter. And the CJAC people, and I would certainly give credit to Gary Darling, who was formerly the Criminal Justice Services Director, for recognizing that money is not a way to assure either community safety or people appearing in court. And so they, CJAC worked together to put together a program not only for pretrial supervision of people, but also a formula for determining who should get non-monetary or what are called personal recognizance bonds, so that they can get out of jail while they have a matter pending without paying any money to do so. The end result of that was an administrative order by my predecessor, Chief Judge, that actually there may have been one. I know Judge Shapansky, my immediate predecessor, issued one, and Judge Hyatt, his predecessor, may have. But the end result was that we have delegated to bond commissioners at the jail who are trained and who have the procedure set up to go through this and to try to look at who ought to be released on personal recognizance bonds. They are given authority to actually set bonds for misdemeanor matters, and they recommend bonds to the judge for felony matters. Larimer County has had far fewer people in jail, far lower percentage of the people in jail who are eligible for bond than most places in the state, because this program really has worked well to get people out of jail and at the same time assure that they have that they are going to appear in court for their next scheduled court appearance. Another example of one of the programs that CJAC was involved in is a program called Co-Responder Program. I think there will be others talking about that, but it involves sending somebody with mental health training out with law enforcement when there's a dispatch that indicates there may be a mental health issue. And that's been very successful in de-escalating situations before incidents get out of hand. I can tell you, just for an example, we have a CJAC meeting tomorrow, that among the things on the agenda are update as to COVID, because COVID has created a lot of issues for all of the criminal justice system, in terms of there was a period of time where the work release program and the what we call the work ender program, where people go in on weekends to serve a jail sentence. Those programs had to be suspended. We had to change things at the jail. Obviously the courts were closed, and what we ended up communicating, each agency was able to understand what was going on with the other agencies, so that they could better deal with their own situations. There's an agenda item for tomorrow called SIM mapping update, which is a study that's being done through CJAC as to where the gaps are. Well, it focuses on the intersection between mental health and criminal law, and what gaps in services or other gaps there may be that interfere with doing the best we can in terms of addressing mental health issues, substance abuse issues that really do heavily impact the criminal justice system. These are all things that I think we have been able to be at the forefront of reforms across the state, and really other people are just now trying to implement. Going beyond the issue of CJAC specifically, although this certainly does involve CJAC, I wanted to briefly touch on some of the things that we've had to do at the courthouse to deal with COVID, because I think people are probably particularly interested in that at this point in time.
Judge Howard?
Yes.
Really quickly, before you get into the COVID thing, is there any way I can introduce our other panelists and then we'll let you finish up on COVID. Is that okay?
That's fine, or, I don't know how much time I've used, but we can let everybody else have their turn, and I can finish up at the end if time allows.
That's okay. I just wanted to do a quick introduction so that our attendees knew whose faces they were going to look at, and then we can finish up the presentation, okay?
Great.
Awesome. So really quickly, for all of you that are attending tonight, again, thank you. I want you to know whose faces you're looking at before we get too deep into our presentations. Judge Howard did a great job with the overview of what CJAC is and how it participates, or how all of the attendees work, all of the CJAC members work together. And I think talking about COVID is important because it has changed all of our lives, and I know that it's changed how the criminal justice system, especially courts, will function, probably not just during COVID, but probably for the rest of our lives. So really quickly, the other faces in the room. First, I am going to ask Mitch Murray to introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Mitch Murray. I'm an assistant district attorney here in the district attorney's office. There are 2 assistants in the office. I've been with the office about 30 years, long enough that it goes all the way back to when we first started one of our first specialty court, which is drug court, almost 20 years ago. But I'm very happy to be here and happy to present to you.
Thank you, Mitch. Catherine Haye.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Haye. I'm the head of the Public Defender's Office here in Fort Collins. We are a state agency, and we represent individuals who are indigent, meaning they don't have the monetary funds to hire private counsel, that are charged with criminal charges. So if you are poor and have criminal charges pending, you will be entitled to representation by an attorney. People oftentimes ask whether or not public defenders are real attorneys, and I can assure you that we are.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Greg, go ahead. You're still muted, Greg. There you go.
Hello, I'm Greg Otte, the Deputy Chief Probation Officer here in the 8th District. I've been with the department for about 25 years as a PO, a supervisor, and now as the Deputy Chief. Prior to coming here, I spent 10 years working for the Department of Human Services, dealing with child abuse cases and working with youth in a locked setting. Since coming to probation, I've done juvenile work, adult work, specialized work, and now I do a lot of administrative tasks and supervise some of the probation supervisors here in the office.
Thank you so much. Last but not least at all, Judge Field, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Judge Julie Field, and I've been on the bench and serving the people of this county and in this district, I should say, since January 11th of 2011. So coming up on 10 years, it has been my privilege and my honor to do that. It is also the best part of my job, frankly, is running the Wellness Court, which is the 8th Judicial District Mental Health Problem Solving Court. I'll talk more about that at the end, as well as the other courts that, that we run here out of the 8th. And we have had problem solving courts since 1998. So I've got quite a history to share with you in a very short amount of time, but I am gonna focus a lot on Wellness Court because I think that's a good example of what we do, how we do it, and what great benefit it can have for the individuals in the program and for the community as a whole.
Thank you so much, Judge Field. I'm going to ask my panelists, if they're not presenting, to turn their videos off. This is so that it's not distracting to our attendees. And I'm also going to stop sharing my screen in case any of our panelists have anything that they would like to share. With that, Judge Howard, I would like to turn it back to you. I think COVID is important. Maybe talk about COVID quickly so we can get on to our other panelists, but I do think it is an important thing. It has changed how the world is working, and I know it's changed how the courts are functioning, so I invite you to please share that with us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. I will go through that. I know we've only got a limited amount of time, and I think I used most of my time with talking about CJAC, but I did want to bring this up because I think it says a whole lot about how the court system really is here to serve people, and it has worked hard to do that. When COVID first became a big issue in March, and I think possibly even before the state's public health order, the decision was made that, to suspend jury trials and to essentially close the courthouses statewide, except for certain very specific emergency type matters that were required by statute to have hearings within a certain period of time, that sort of thing. So we ended up putting together one of those Chief Justice administrative orders I referenced, saying that we were open for these purposes, we're not open for other purposes, that the public, we tried to create a lot of ways for the public to submit filings that they had previously had to come into the courthouse to submit. We created, and this was done really statewide, a electronic way of people participating in hearings. The Judicial Department uses a program called WebEx, which is similar to Zoom, but is preferred by the state because of security reasons. As we went along, then we got into June, and I think the Chief Justice, I believe it was in June, issued an order saying, well, you can apply for a special exception if you think you can resume having jury trials. And we did that for the last part of July, although it ended up, I think people were not as ready to have jury trials as we thought we were, but we worked closely with the health department, put together a waiver request that was approved by the Chief Justice. Then in August, the Chief Justice authorized jury trials as long as there was compliance with the public health orders. And we put together an administrative order for resuming jury trials that dealt with jurors not reporting if they had symptoms. We have a plan for health assessment of jurors when they do appear, that all jurors come in, they sit in a jury room or jury assembly room that has been modified to keep all the chairs 6 feet apart, that for felony trials, we have the jury selection process takes place in a combination of the courtroom and the jury assembly room because we can't get enough people in any one room safely. Everyone wears masks, but we have people who are, we have an electronic video connection between the courtroom where the main proceedings take place and the jury assembly room where the other prospective jurors are. For misdemeanors, we can put jurors right into a courtroom. But for felonies, it just requires too many people. They take up a good part of the courtroom. And even once the jury is selected, we have to use 2 jury rooms instead of 1. We only have 2 jury rooms on each floor. in order to keep the jury sufficiently spaced. So, we did go through, work closely with the health department, with the both the prosecution and the defense attorneys, and we put this plan together. The jurors who have come in have consistently reported that they feel like they're safe, that adequate precautions have been made. We have gotten a number of trials done now. We're still limited in the number of trials that we can do at any one time, but it is, we are getting, I would say, partially back to normal. Certainly not fully, but I can report that the people who have participated in these experiences have expressed that they're comfortable with them. As to other non-jury matters, most of the court proceedings are being conducted remotely now. The courts have worked with the sheriff's office and the people at the jail to get video connections to where we don't have to bring in custody people over to the courthouse for most proceedings.
Judge Howard, I hate to interrupt you again. I'm sorry, but I want to make sure we have time for everybody in questions at the end.
Absolutely, and I was just about to say, and that summarizes where we are.
Awesome. I appreciate your words, Judge Howard. Thank you so very much. We'll come back for questions at the end. Next up, we have Mitch Murray. Mitch, go ahead.
Thank you. And as Judge Howard said, the courts and the district attorney's office are here to serve this community. And one of the things that we've done in the 8th Judicial District is developed a number of specialty courts in an attempt to modify what we've done in the criminal justice system to make it more responsive to the community needs and the needs of individuals who have become involved in the criminal justice system. And we do that by trying to tailor things to their need and really creating alternatives to what we historically would do as far as supervision and treatment of these individuals. Here in the 8th Judicial District, we have a wellness court, which addresses the needs and treatment of people with persistent and serious mental health illnesses or disorders. We have a Dui Recovery Court, which addresses needs of individuals who have had a number of DUIs and have been through the traditional court process of probation and supervision and alcohol education, but are still returning to the criminal justice system. And we have our drug court, which has been around for the longest period of time, treating and dealing with the issues of substance abuse and addiction. All of these courts are designed to bring a team together to focus the treatment and supervision of these individuals in a way that addresses them individually and the specific problems that are continuing to bring them back. The goal is to change behaviors, is to try to alter their patterns of behavior that continue to bring them in conflict with our community and in contact with law enforcement. Not only is that effort to improve their lives, but it's to improve public safety and improve our community by addressing those needs. In some of these courts, it's amazing how intensive the supervision and contact with these defendants can be. For instance, and I know Judge Field is going to talk about this in more detail. I hope I don't take too much of her presentation. But with Wellness Court, you can have individuals who are as many as 13 times a week are brought into contact with individuals that are involved with their treatment and supervision and monitoring to help bring them around to getting their mental health needs met and helping to change their behaviors to bring them into a more law-abiding way of thinking. So those are the treatment courts. Again, the one that's been around the longest time is the drug court, and that's dealing with people with serious drug addiction problems. The DUI court dealing with people who have returned to the criminal courts having committed DUIs. The effort being to change those behaviors so we aren't just filling jail beds. And I think that twofold large purpose, changing behaviors, bringing them to a law-abiding way of living, and eliminating the use of jail beds and incarceration, when with these individuals, we've seen that just doesn't change their behavior. On the opposite side of the spectrum, the District Attorney's Office is a pilot program for an adult mental health diversion program. And I distinguish that diversion program from the specialty courts, because in those cases, the specialty courts, a person's charged, they come into court, they enter a plea, and as a part of their sentence, they're referred to the specialty court. The diversion program happens earlier in the process. What happens is law enforcement will come into contact with someone for a crime. The belief is that crime has its roots in some kind of mental health issues or problems. Once that person is arrested, they're given a mental health evaluation at the jail. Their case is screened by bond commissioners to make sure it fits within the program, because only certain offenses are eligible to be in this diversion program. If it does, the District Attorney's Office, we then review it, and our adult mental health diversion coordinator will actually come out and meet with the defendant and talk to them about what mental health diversion is. That program tries to connect these individuals where their criminal conduct is closely connected to these mental health issues with treatment providers, with primarily Summit Stone. And through Summit Stone and our collaboration with them and the mental health folks, we can get an evaluation of the people that are involved. And if they're willing to participate, that connection is made. They're hooked up with the treatment folks at Summit Stone. The diversion program lasts for 6 months. And if they're able to get through that and stay in contact, go to their treatment, perhaps take medications if that's a part of it, for that 6 months, then their charge is dismissed and not prosecuted. So they don't move further and deeper into the criminal justice system. Now, that program was started in 2018 by our legislature. And the legislature was initially targeting a population where they believed there were a number of people being incarcerated and held in our jails for mental health issues, where if we could connect them with treatment, we could keep them out of that system. When we started the pilot program, we found out pretty quickly that population just didn't really exist in the 8th Judicial District. And I think that's a credit to what Judge Howard referred to as our very robust pretrial release program. Through that program, we do try to get people out of jail that don't need to be there. But as we started the working on the pilot program, the original design of it was to go have these meetings at the jail and try to divert people out of that jail. Since that population didn't really exist, we've been able to adapt that program and modify how we're looking at people, how we're bringing them into the program. And one thing I would emphasize to folks out there in the community is we are really fortunate in this jurisdiction because we have people working in our criminal justice system who are flexible, who are creative, who are willing to take a look at what they're doing, making sure they're doing it the right way and they're getting the results they want. And if not, modifying that, trying to figure out the best way to get it done. I think we've done that in all of our specialty courts. I know when we first started putting drug court together, there was a certain type of a defendant that we believed was going to be the best person to be served by that. And that has changed. The same with wellness court when it was initially designed and begun. And each of those modifications is an attempt to do what we're trying to achieve better. The same thing's happening in the adult mental health diversion program. We are modifying that program. The folks working on that in our office are being creative. They're collaborating with other folks. One of the most recent things is an attempt to bring in this co-responder type idea, where we have people out on the street that are with law enforcement. And when they come into contact with that person, and this may surprise you, but law enforcement gets to know the people that have these mental health issues because they are repeatedly coming into contact with them. Perhaps through that person's own frequent calls to 911, frequent involvement with our emergency medical folks, wherever that may be. But the idea being that perhaps if we can collaborate with these co-responders, we can identify folks even earlier to try to get them into this diversion program. And we've seen some good successes with that program. It began in earnest in June, so it's really still in its infancy. And once we got to March, with the effects of the COVID pandemic, it's been shut down to some degree. The state has had financial issues which have caused them to pull back some of the funding, but we're searching out and finding alternatives to that funding here locally in our county.
Hey, Mitch, just a few more minutes.
Okay, thank you. But those fundings will allow us to continue that program and modify it so that it best serves the needs of this community. And we're very proud of it here at the District Attorney's Office. I think it's got great potential moving forward. The other thing I wanted to touch on the opposite side of the coin is that the District Attorney's Office has a great many programs directed at victims. We have a victim witness division that tries to help victims navigate their way through a criminal justice system that can be difficult and intimidating. We seek restitution and have a restitution area in our victim witness division that tries to make sure we're getting orders to make them the victims whole. And we have a victims compensation program that tries to compensate victims for some of the losses that they've suffered. The whole purpose of that division, trying to minimize those negative effects of crime on our victims and trying to help get their voices heard and help them navigate through that system. With that, I'll close down to see whether there's any questions at the end for me to address. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mitch. All right, next we have Catherine Haye.
Good evening again, everyone. I am also a big proponent of the alternative justice programs in Larimer County, and I can echo the words of Judge Howard and Mitch regarding the efficacy of these programs, the fact that they are fairly unique, but I definitely come from this from a different perspective. It's been interesting to practice as a defender over the past 29 years. I've seen great change, and I can definitely see the positive direction that Larimer County has moved in many ways. I think that the problem-solving courts with DUI court, drug court, mental health court, these are all great programs. I can also see sometimes the dangers in taking a little too much credit, which was talking about the diversion program that Larimer County was involved in for a short period of time until the legislature experienced dramatic downturn in anticipated income due to the pandemic this year. Larimer County was involved in the diversion pilot program that Mitch spent a fair amount of time discussing. Unfortunately, that program has been sidelined by the legislature and the lack of funds to support it. We don't have an adult diversion program in Larimer County that can funnel individuals that are suffering from mental health issues solely coming into contact with the justice system because of that out of the criminal justice system. And we do still see an inordinate number of people that are in custody in Larimer County Jail that are using beds who are incarcerated because they can't pay low-level bonds, such as $50 cash bonds to be able to get out in lieu of a personal recognizance bond. So as a public defender, one of the great strengths is to bring these kind of challenges to the table. When we're meeting with a Community Justice Advisory Committee, obviously there's strong input from the sheriffs and the law enforcement, the chiefs of police, the courts, the prosecution, and it's our job as defenders to bring to light some of the adverse consequences, even some of the well-intentioned programs that we have may have in the community. That being said, I want to highlight the fact that the changes are real and dramatic. It was not uncommon 20 years ago for an individual to appear in the courtroom, to have resolved a particular case, turn around, leave the courtroom, and get rearrested on a motion to revoke probation. It wasn't unusual for an individual to churn in and out of the jail system over and over, wreaking havoc on their stability, their ability to earn income, their ability to keep a stable place to live. And these kind of impacts had real consequences on not only the clients, but those clients' families, their children, the community as a whole. I think that the focus with the progressive nature of the, and I say that not in a political sense, but in the changes that have been built up over time, have been very positive overall, and that they are serving the needs of the community. I would highlight the fact that Larimer County has had a work release program, a midweek program, where individuals who are serving jail sentences for low-level offenses can serve those without losing their jobs. Those individuals can come in on the weekends or on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, serve their sentences and maintain employment, go home for the remainder of the week, and be able to sustain their family obligations. There's also the programming through work release with individuals who have longer sentences, who are given a place in the community out at the Criminal Justice Complex on Midpoint Drive, where they can wear their own clothes, be released into the community on a daily basis to their jobs, and come back and receive credit for those. Those are not unusual in this day and age, but they certainly have been something that Larimer County can be proud of. These programs have been traditionally on the cutting edge in Larimer County, and many of the other jurisdictions have commented on the programming that we do have available here in Larimer County. And I think those are very just credits. I do want to recognize, as Judge Howard said, that in Jackson County, which is also in Larimer County, I'm sorry, the 8th Judicial District, access to services as simple as substance use programs are not available routinely, and it is a wide discrepancy between the services that individuals have access to in the 8th Judicial District. Jackson County is in large part, the cases come out of Walden. It's high plains up over the pass. It's very isolated in that form. So one of the things that we'll need to focus on is to make sure that this kind of access to justice and some of the programming that we have benefited from here in Larimer County is able to be expanded. And I'm pleased to say that there is a new focus, and that criminal justice funds have been secured to help support Jackson County as they move forward. I would, I guess I would focus on the fact that as defenders, we deal with many of those individuals that are coming into the courts. We get a broad-based overview of the kinds of cases that are being prosecuted in Larimer County. And it's been interesting to see what changes are wrought. We have had drastic changes in the law, recognizing that substance use and ongoing incarceration is not going to disappear simply because of prison sentences. The legislature has drastically reduced the punishments, and for good cause, because so many people involved in substance use disorders are suffering from the effects of these physical and biological changes to their brain, such that what seem to be logical decision-making choices for others, frankly, are not available to those people suffering from the addiction process. And many of those individuals were cycling through the court system over and over and over again. Things probably came to a head in the late 90s and early 2000s when methamphetamine was such a scourge and was so locally prevalent. It continues to this day with the opiate problems and the addictions with heroin. I would note that the legislature's changed the drug sentencing potentials for simple possession from a 2 to 6 year prison sentence to a drug misdemeanor one from 6 to 18 months county jail. They've also coupled that with mandatory community-based sentences that will focus on treatment of offenders and individuals who have been charged. There's also this recognition that some of the things that we did when drug courts were first initiated and we were going to the programming and learning about best practices, Judge Kaup was instrumental in starting the drug court program here in Larimer County. And when that first came about, there was the belief that individuals who had used or distributed drugs were not going to be able to be successful in the drug court program and would frankly be a ready source of substance for others that were trying to get clean. It's been interesting to see that actually over time we've learned that many of those individuals who actually have had distribution charges have been just as successful as those individuals with simple possession charges in other jurisdictions. So as a defender, as a defense community, our goal is always to try and keep those problem-solving courts moving forward.
Catherine, just a few more minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I would just let you know that I think the problem-solving courts have as their goal a more holistic outcome for individuals, but it is very difficult. And one of the things that I struggle with the prosecution on a regular basis is recognition of how much it takes to participate in a program where you may be called to meet with your individual counsel, a group session, participate in person on a daily basis, take monitored substance abuse several times a week. So these are really very difficult, and recognizing that that toll is worthy of a negotiated plea disposition that takes into consideration this is very important. And I think I would end by stating that the programming that we have in Larimer County clearly shows that we have a lot of work to continue to do, that no matter whether or not we consider ourselves to be on the cutting edge of unique programming that tries to address the community justice needs, that there are real disparities with regards to access to justice, and that equality does not look for the same for minority populations in our jurisdiction. We are no better than other jurisdictions. We will constantly have to keep a focus on procedural justice and community fairness. And I'm encouraged that this is just the first step, and I hope to continue not only to share with you all the progress that we're making in Larimer County, but then take that next step and listen to the community to find out how the programming that we have in Larimer County can affect others who may not have the same advantages as their fellow citizens.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you for the work you do. It's very important work. We all appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, let's turn it over to Greg.
Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Otte. I'm going to talk about our 4 basic functions that we do here at probation. Our initial contact with potential probation clients comes during the pre-sentence investigation part of what we do. So at the time of sentencing or following the conviction or plea of guilty, the court may order that probation gets involved in giving them more information to make the best sentencing option possible. So the officers assigned to that unit, we hand out a packet to the potential clients. They fill that out. It talks about their social history, their criminal history, their support systems, how they viewed their crime, what accountability are they taking for their actions to make their victim whole. We look at a lot of those different things. We conduct interview with those clients, which includes doing an assessment for criminal risk, also looking at assessments geared towards substance abuse, mental health issues, and any other needs or barriers that a client may have to supervision if sentenced to probation. This report, or this combination of factors, is all put into a report and then given to the court, and it includes the court proceedings in the case. It includes the official version of the offense, the defendant's version of the offense, the criminal history of this individual, their social history, and then the officers kind of tie it into a package listed as our impressions section. So at that point, we're summarizing our findings, and we're looking at the different sentencing alternatives they may get from the court. And then we make final recommendations to the court. And if probation is going to be involved in any part of that sentence, we will add additional conditions at that time that we would like the potential client to partake in. Our second function that we do is our intake process, and that's our probationer's first interaction with the office if they didn't do a pre-sentence evaluation. In those cases, the clients come in, we do the same thing. They complete an intake packet. We gather a lot of their social background, their criminal history. Again, we look at their support systems, try to get a picture of where they're at in this process. Take a look at their criminal history score, and then see where they score out as far as what types of supervision is needed at that time. And then the case gets appropriately assigned to an officer from that unit. The third thing that we do is our victim services programming. This is where we really collaborate with the district attorney's office. In this case, the victim in cases have been in contact with the district attorney's office. The district attorney's office staff let them know that if their offender is sentenced to probation, that they can remain in contact with the victim personnel within our office. And so we are notified of that, and then we send out notifications to those victims asking if they want to participate in notification of critical stages that occur during a probationer's supervision. Currently, right now, we have about 840 victims that we're actively keeping in contact with. And that could be as little as the small phone call, just wanting to know or give us some information about what they think is going on with the probationer. They could also bring us information of concerns that they have about that probation officer, and our victim staff sometimes can answer these questions. If the concerns are too great, they will kick that over to our probation officer assigned to the case. And if we can't come to some kind of resolution, it's also staffed with one of our supervisors and or myself to talk about next course of action with the case. The final function that we do here at probation, and what I would consider the bulk of what we do, is supervision. Actively right now in Larimer County and Jackson County, we have 5,700 clients under some form of communication. Now, due to COVID, that number is a little less right now. It had been running at about 6,200 towards the end of 2019. With supervision, the clients come in and they meet their officer, and they are assigned based on their risk, like I said earlier. So I'll describe a little bit about our levels of supervision that we do. So our minimum risk clients are seen two different ways. They're either put on an offender-linked caseload, so that's our lowest risk offenders, never been involved in the criminal system before, typically misdemeanor cases, but can be felony cases from time to time if they're low risk. They are monitored by probation officers through a computer system. The clients have to report in everything they're doing on their case as far as their terms and conditions, their treatment. And if something's amiss, the probation officer will contact them look at what's going on in the case, and then decide if the person can remain on this offender league program or they get kicked back to some form of supervision. Our next, I want to say our higher level of our minimum risk clients are referred to our private probation vendor here in Larimer County for supervision. Again, those are for our lower risk clients. They may have had some supervision in the past, but successfully completed it. And they're mostly misdemeanor clients as well. The bigger portion of what we do is address our medium and maximum risk clients. Those officers meet with clients. They review the terms and conditions of probation, look over the assessments, and then begin to develop a case plan with those clients, looking for goals that need to be accomplished and action steps that need to occur to accomplish those goals. At this point in juncture, we're looking at what strengths do the clients bring to the table to begin supervision? What kind of supports do they have in the community? What barriers do they have, whether that could be homelessness, severe trauma, mental health issues, substance abuse issues, homelessness. And then we try to go from there with the clients. We refer out to the different agencies to meet the conditions. So that could be such as treatment for substance abuse, domestic violence, mental health treatment. We also refer over to some of our partners at alternative sentencing because we're monitoring their jail sentence, whether that be alternative or straight time. Also watching over the community service aspect of their case as well, and how they're trying to repair harm to the community. Our supervision is done through a continuum of incentives and sanctions for the clients. We call that strategies for behavioral change. And we look at what the bad behavior is as opposed to what their current level of supervision is. And then we come to some agreement based on a metrics of what that sanction would be if they're doing something wrong, or likewise, if they're doing something really well and they're making some long-term behavioral change, not just short-term compliance, but really intrinsically applying what they've learned, then we could also give them incentives. And that comes in the form of, we could pay for some treatment, we could pay for some drug tests, things of those natures to help the clients along that are buying into to better themselves.
Hey, Greg, just a few more minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
We also have specialized teams within the office. That's our level limit setter, intensive supervised probation. Those are some of our highest criminogenic needs individuals. We have our casework control clients, and they can be high risk and very high needs. So again, mental health issues, substance abuse issues, major trauma issues, or homelessness. Then we have our sex offender specialized unit as well, and they deal with just the probationers that have committed sexual offenses. And I won't go too deep into it because it's been talked about, but our final group of supervision staff that we have are the ones that deal with the specialty courts, the DUI court, the drug court, and the AIIM and wellness court. So thank you, and willing to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Greg, so much. And our final panelist for the evening, I'm going to pass it over to Judge Field. Judge Field, go ahead.
All right, thank you. It's actually great that I'm following Greg because Greg talked about the different levels of supervision. And one of the things that I want to be sure that we're focusing on is how problem-solving courts are different. And not just how problem-solving courts are different than regular court, but also how they're different than regular probation supervision. So if you heard what Greg said, he talked about the highest level of supervision that they have. Problem-solving courts actually have an even higher level of supervision than the highest level of probation. and that's where they start. But the one piece of it that is different, that really distinguishes the problem-solving courts, is the contact that individuals have with the court. Individuals who are in a problem-solving court, whether that is our soon-to-be 20-year-old drug court, whether that is our juvenile recovery court, our DUI court, or wellness court, they come to court every week at the beginning to spend time with the judge and reflect with the judge. And it is that contact with the judge that really can make the difference for folks. One of the other differences between the problem-solving courts and regular probation is, if you think about what Greg just described as a probation supervision, even at the highest level, somebody might be ordered to do drug treatment and mental health treatment, and to take UAs and to get medications prescribed and that kind of thing. The difference with the problem-solving courts is that what we do is we create, in most cases, a one-stop shop where people can go and get their medications, get their mental health treatment, get their drug treatment, and have their UAs taken. So it is a place where the court is different and has more direct contact with individuals as they are on supervision. So I'm going to talk about wellness court in particular, because I think that gives a good example of what we do. And while I'm putting my screen up, what I would like to do is to ask you all a question, and you can answer that in the Q&A if you'd like. How many jail bed days do you think we have saved in 2019 because of the adult problem-solving courts? Put your guesses in. We have 5 problem-solving courts in Larimer County. And while you're thinking about that, let me just tell you that the goals really of the problem-solving courts are to reduce recidivism, to reduce jail bed days, and we have state requirements that we have to follow. So when I'm talking about how many jail bed days we've saved in 2019, what we're comparing are the number of jail bed days that the clients who are in the problem-solving courts had before that year, and how many jail bed days they've had since they've been in the court. So actually in 2019 alone, all of our problem-solving courts saved 7,767 jail bed days. It literally is thousands of jail bed days. And if you think about the cost of a jail bed versus the cost of treatment, we are saving real dollars for the people of Larimer County and the 8th Judicial District. And wellness court, this is just an example, wellness court, DUI court, drug court are all alternatives to incarceration. So rather than going to prison, people are turning to problem-solving courts such as wellness court. And again, this is just an example. All of our problem-solving courts are pretty similar. It's a team approach with a judge and court support staff. In the wellness court, we have community corrections and the AIIM program that work with us. Probation, we work very closely with probation, with the district attorney and the public defender. And it's interesting in the problem-solving court because these folks who might be on opposite sides of a case in a criminal trial, the district attorney and public defender, are working together with this team in trying to reach good outcomes for folks. Law enforcement is also on our team, as is alternative sentencing, the work release and work ender programs. So just talking for a minute about wellness court, who's a potential wellness court client? Someone who has a severe and persistent mental illness, things that you might think of like bipolar, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, major depression, and combat PTSD. One thing that people need to be aware of is that we do work with veterans in our court, and we welcome veterans into our court, and we see a number of folks that have suffered mental health issues because of their service to our country. most of our people have substance abuse disorder in context with the issue, the severe and persistent mental illness. It has to be a legally competent adult who lives in Larimer County. What it means to be legally competent is that you understand the court process. And it has to be an adult who lives in Larimer County and someone who's charged with a felony or misdemeanor. I wish we could offer these services to folks who are not criminally involved because we have such an amazing program and an amazing team of mental health professionals and substance abuse professionals, but we're just not in a position to be able to do that. But what this does do is it gives an alternative to incarceration. So what happens in wellness court? As I said, it's a one-stop shop. Folks go to the AIIM program, which was a precursor to a wellness court, where they can get their medications, their supervision. They go to their group meetings, group therapy, counseling. They get their basic needs there. We help them find housing, get public benefits, get their ID documents, and those kinds of things. And when they start the program, they have contact with staff 6 days per week. So as I said, you know, when we're talking about probation levels, such as Greg was talking about, it starts at the highest level, but as folks progress through the program, whether it's wellness court, whether it's drug court, they get a lower level of supervision, but they still get the community support. And most importantly, they attend court once per week where they are held accountable and they get to reflect with the judge in charge of that court on their successes over the past week. So what happens in court? Well, we, as judges, we have individualized face-to-face conversations with them. We talk with the clients. We use first names. We don't talk to them through their lawyers. If they've done well, then they get rewards. They can draw from a fishbowl and get gift certificates. They can get days off of programming. They can get some benefits. They can also get some sanctions. If they haven't done very well that week, they might get sanctions such as doing some community service. And even in COVID times, we've had community service that folks have been able to do. We also have interventions where if someone is not doing well, maybe we have them do a therapeutic assignment. Maybe they have to meet more frequently with their therapist. The other thing we do in wellness court is we play music every week, and every once in a while there is dancing. At the end of the program, they, with Wellness Court, I think this is true with the other problem-solving courts as well, they also do a final project, which is the culmination of their time in Wellness Court and their journey. And these are just a few examples of some things that people have done, some amazing artwork, some brochures, testimonials, videos where they've shown a skill, drawing box here in the middle is someone wrote a number of affirmations and quotes that they had gotten from Wellness Court and pull them out every once in a while to remind them. And the most powerful thing that we've heard from clients is that journey and how far they have come in their journey. For example, and these are quotes from clients that are used with permission. 3 years ago, I never thought I'd see the man I became today. It's unbelievable that something deep inside pushed myself to get that help and start chiseling the stone walls that confine me so I may open up to the gift I've been given. So much heart, so much hard work that goes into this. But the real question for the community is, does it work? It does. We are reducing recidivism. We're reducing jail bed days. We all know that jail is not a mental health facility. We all know that reducing the revolving door effect for those, particularly those with mental illness or with substance abuse issues in the criminal justice system, benefits all of our society. And really what we try to do is to address the underlying mental health issues so that they don't come back, so that they do get treatment, so that they can go on and continue to get counseling. Just some stats on Wellness Court. The total number of clients served in the 6 years that our program has existed is 163. The reduction of jail bed days over the life of our program only, 20,690. 20,690 days when people were not in jail because of Wellness Court. I'm going to start getting all teary because it is that powerful. The cost of a jail bed day, these are some old numbers, but you get the idea. The cost of a jail bed day in Larimer County is $121 per day. We have calculated that it costs $43 a day to have someone in wellness court. So these are real dollars. These are real people. These are cases that are not costing the community and are benefiting everyone in the community. So I think I have stopped sharing my screen. Problem-solving courts are different because we provide a service that wraps the clients in a warm embrace. We expect accountability, we expect responsibility to be taken, but we do provide them with what they need to be successful in our society. What's different with COVID? We have been able, even with COVID, to bring people into court. Most recently, within the last month to 2 months, people have physically been able to come back into court. But even when we weren't able to do in-person court, we were able to have remote court on our WebEx platform. We were able to have counseling continue remotely, and people have been able to get their medications on a regular basis. We really didn't lose, I'm knocking on wood, we really didn't lose anyone because of COVID in wellness court. So it is just a spectacular program that I am extraordinarily proud to be part of. And everyone who is on this call tonight is part of that, as are all of the folks that I mentioned in the list of our team members. So come and watch if you want to. If you would like to contact contact Michelle, and she can get you all in touch with me and with our problem-solving court coordinator. And if we have capacity, we're a little worried about physical capacity in the courtroom right now, but if you want to come, we'll see if we can figure out a way to make that work, because you've got to see what we do. It's amazing. And all the problem-solving courts do similar things, so it's not just us.
Thank you so much, Judge Field. That's amazing to hear. Those are some pretty impressive statistics you gave. I can see why I'm getting a little teary thinking about it. So what a great way to end with our panelists tonight. We do have a few questions we would like to answer live. So just as a reminder to folks, if you have questions that come up, go ahead and put them in the Q&A section. You can also raise your hand if you would like to talk to us and ask your question that way. I am going to preference this by saying the intent tonight is to have a discussion about the program as a whole. We're here to talk about how our system as a whole works, how we can have those discussions to make it better. And tonight is not about any type of personal attacks or things like that. So with that being said, I'm going to ask all of my panelists come back to their cameras so that we can see your faces. And I'm going to start asking a few of the questions we have. We only have about 10 minutes left, so hopefully we can get through the few that we have. So the first question is from Keith. Keith says, I am so appreciative of the alternative court systems that I've heard about to divert people out of sitting in jail and getting help appropriate to their situation. Nationwide, we are finding that some of our policies are racially biased. How are you, the judicial system, examining your records for racial prejudice? Is the bond system racially equal? Judge Field, I'm going to pass this off to you, but if there's others who would like to respond as well, other panelists are welcome to. Okay,
thanks, Michelle. Actually, I do want to speak to this question, and Keith, thank you for asking it. With the awareness that we all have in a heightened way, I think, this summer, based on everything that's happening nationally. There is a discussion that's going on around racial issues. On June 11th of this year, the Colorado Supreme Court, every justice signed a letter regarding concerns about racial inequality and what we as a judicial department can do regarding racial disparity. As a result of that letter, we started here in the 8th an anti-racism work group where we are discussing those issues. We're trying to, the short answer to your question, Keith, is that how are we examining our records for racial prejudice, and is the bond system racially equal? We're trying to figure that out. What we're looking at is trying to figure out what information we need, what data we need, what information can we learn as judges, as probation officers to address these issues. And of the 20 or so judicial officers in the 8th Judicial District, including Jackson County, 13 are on this work group, and we're working very hard to try and get that information and learn what we can to help our colleagues address the issues as well. So we're just starting that process, but I will tell you, I've been in touch with other folks around the state, in both on the Supreme Court and in other districts. And this is an area of discussion statewide, and one that we are hoping to really be able to address locally as well. So we're starting to figure that out. It is definitely on our radar. And Keith, thank you for asking that question.
Thank you, Judge Field. Are there others that want to jump in? Mitch, go ahead.
I think I'd just add and echo Judge Field's comments. I think the work has just begun. You know, we're trying to figure out how to gather information on demographics and how to be able to actually look at what's happening in our cases, to look for any kind of bias and how it might be affecting decisions that are being made. So it's a very good point and very timely. And I guess the comment that I would have to echo what Judge Field said is that work is beginning.
Judge Howard, go ahead.
I want to respond specifically to the question that Keith had about the bond system being racially equal. And it may have been prompted, I think there have been a couple of news stories related to that, but we are now required by statute, but have for some time been using a tool called the Colorado Pretrial Assessment Tool, which is attempts to bring an evidence-based system for looking at bonds. That tool, I think everybody viewed as being certainly racially balanced. We have hired, or that the University of Northern Colorado has been doing a study to validate it, and they've concluded that it is, one of the issues is that it may have some racial impact, is that it looked at how long somebody resided in their home, and it turns out that for whatever reason does seem to impact white people differently. They are revising that program to devalue that question, and I think making several other revisions that probably aren't race related, but it is something that's being addressed to assure that there will not be a racial bias in the bond system.
Thank you, Judge Howard. Catherine, go ahead.
And I would just let you know, Keith, and the rest of our listeners that, unfortunately, the racial biases are very real. They continue. I would point you all to the Vortex, that it's a justice policy organization. They document on a county by county basis the racial disparities in Colorado. And in Larimer County, we're no different than other counties. And the number of actual drug users who are white is fivefold the number of individuals who are people of African-American descent. And yet the prison admission rate for individuals, for Black African-Americans, is 10 times larger than it is for whites. So these are very real disparities, and we have a lot of work to do in the criminal justice system to address these issues. And I do want to focus on the fact it's not as if there haven't been efforts to try and address this. The state has addressed issues such as procedural justice and fairness, making sure that individuals who may speak a different language have equal access to interpretation services in the courtroom and signage, that there are regular presentations on unconscious bias and how individuals who are minority populations or have different gender backgrounds may be treated unfairly. So there's a lot of work still to be done, and there's a lot of work, good work that has been ongoing.
Thank you, Catherine. We had another question, and I think this one's going to go to Greg. Greg, does anyone ever pay for probation?
Well, that's kind of a complex question, because they do get assessed a supervision fee of $50 a month, everybody that's on adult probation. However, that doesn't really go to the cost of us doing our services. That goes into what's called the Offender Services Fund. It's a big pot of money that's collected on the state level, and then it's dispersed back to the counties based on our population of clients. And then that funding is used to assist clients that are either indigent, or maybe we're putting on some extra conditions to get them back into compliance, and those extra conditions cost money. We can use that funding to help them, such as treatment costs, drug testing. We can assist with housing. There's a lot of different ways that funding can be used. But so they pay in a way, but others reap the benefits of that as well. So.
Thank you for that answer, Greg. So we're running a little. Oh, go ahead.
I was also going to add, Judge Field talked about the costs, and I was just going to give you the annual cost of regular probation statewide is about $1,500 per client for the entire year, as opposed to the deepest part of the system, which is the Department of Corrections. And if somebody's sentenced there and sentenced into one of the state facilities, they're looking at about $42,000 a year to handle that offender on an annual basis. So fairly cost effective to have people on supervision at this time.
Greg, we have a quick follow-up to that. What about those who can't afford the $50 per month?
Well, we can ask to have some of those fees waived. The court can find that client indigent, or they can work with our collections department, and they will come up with some kind of a fee structure or pay structure that allows them to pay at least something during the time that they're on probation.
Thank you, Greg. We have one, we are out of questions, but we have one person who wants to speak. So we'll go, that'll be our last attendee for tonight to participate. Bob Mccluskey, you have your hand raised. So Bob, I'm gonna allow you to talk, and now you're gonna have to unmute yourself, Bob. So probably in the bottom left corner, you look like you got it, go ahead.
Okay, good, thank you, Michelle. A question probably for Mitch. Earlier there was a comment that for veterans with PTSD, they can go through one of the problem-solving courts. I've heard about veterans courts. Is that something different that we should add to the mix we have already, or is that being taken care of through the wellness court? Mitch?
You know, it is something that's been discussed. We've looked at the population of folks that are in need of that would qualify. when we tried to evaluate how many folks would be able to come into a veterans court and then look at what we're already offering in our wellness court and the drug court, the determination was made that population didn't exist here in Larimer County. I think Judge Fields wants to add a comment, so I'm going to turn the mic over to her.
Yeah, and basically I was going to say the same thing that Mitch did. We've actually looked at this question pretty thoughtfully over the life of wellness court. And I think that the other folks who are on the team can reflect with me on that as well. They do have services available through the VA. Sometimes those services are better than what we can offer, so they may be in a better position to be on regular probation and get VA services directly. But we don't think that we have the population to have a separate veterans court, but we do take veterans with combat PTSD in wellness court. And I know the other problem solving courts address those issues as well and work with vets.
And I think we have a lot of individuals that work very closely with Lisa Gossart, who is our Veterans Outreach Coordinator with the Veterans Outreach Program. And I would concur with Mitch's assessment. We looked into this in depth and discovered that while we certainly have veterans in need, and those are highly important, the Wellness Court program does take veterans who have combat-related PTSD, and the other programming has the capacity, anyway, to have an avenue for individual veterans to be, I guess, combined in a cohort in drug court, et cetera, if necessary.
And I would just add, it's a very important population. It's a significant need, but within the teams that we have in our specialty courts or problem-solving courts, as Judge Field calls them, I think we have the skill, ability, and sensitivity to address those issues.
Thank you guys for those great answers. With that, we are out of time. We're over 3 minutes actually, so I apologize for going over time this evening. But we did get to all of our questions and all of our participants' hands raised, so that's good as well. With that being said, I'd like to thank our panelists for being here tonight. Chief Judge Howard, Judge Field, Mitch, Catherine, Greg, thank you for your time. Thank you for your work that you do. There was many people that put it in the Q&A that they were thankful to have this presentation tonight to learn more about our court system and how Larimer County works. And I'd also like to thank our attendees for being here tonight. I know it is a Wednesday? It's Tuesday evening. And there was probably other things you could have done with your time, but you spent 90 minutes here with us learning about our community and being engaged and being involved. And you guys are the reason I know I personally get up in the morning is to engage with residents like you and work together to make our county better. So thank you for putting in some of the work tonight to make our community a better place. If anyone has any questions that come up later, you'll receive an email from me tomorrow thanking you for attending. Please feel free to email me back and let me know what questions you have, and I can get those to the right people. I'm going to go ahead right now and send out a few links to our other events that have happened and are happening. So this is the third of 4 sessions. I sent out the links to the previous 2 sessions. If you weren't able to attend, you can watch those on playback on our YouTube channel. This will also be available on our YouTube channel sometime tomorrow. So if there's someone you know that would like to watch it, you can feel free to check out Larimer County YouTube and you'll find it there. Also, we have one more session this week. That's going to be on Thursday. It's about primarily our alternative programs, our alternative to sentencing programs here in Larimer County. We have a lot of programs we're very proud of, and we think you will be interested in learning about those as well. With that, if my panelists have nothing else to say, I'm looking and they're all shaking their head no. So with that, good evening and thank you all for attending. Hope to see everybody soon.
Thank you, everybody.